Hey there guys, and welcome back. On this week's show we're going to continue with part 2, the final part of demonstrating how I go about making the wheels on my Jeep build. So I hope you're enjoying it so far. So sit back and let's have a look at part 2. Well, this is a pretty barbaric setup that I've got here, but it works. What we've got is my initial jig here that you can see. I've got the handle on it for sliding back and forth in these two rustic tracks that I've got clamped and angle bracket and screwed to the back fence. Now this back fence here, of course, I've got some pieces of plywood on here, and that will be my depth stop. So when the routing goes in so far, it's only going to hit those stops and not going to allow me to route right through. This particular jig is using a 1/8 inch round tip bit, and I've got it set at 3/16 inch proud of the tabletop. I'll just show you here what that bit looks like, and there you go. I actually had to run out and get one like this today because my other one turns out it was the wrong size. But hey, live and learn, no biggie. Anyway, so the object here is that I'm going to route one pass till I hit the stop, and then reverse it out of the router, and then rotate once to the next index mark on my jig. And I'll just show you another picture of that just from the back view so you can see what I'm looking at. And there it is there. And then once I get that one routed, I will rotate once again to the next index mark, and so forth and so on. I'll just carry on routing. So let's go ahead and do that and see what we end up with. Now that I have the one side routed, I've replaced my indexing jig back on the wheel, but aligned my marks with the center in between each of these cuts. And now I'm going to go ahead and route the other side of the wheel. Just as a case in point, if you think for one instance that you have the strength in your hands to hold this, I thought I could keep this bolt a little loose so that I could index it easily. That's not going to happen. This bit grabs it and likes to spin this wheel like a top. So I've put a thumb screw so to make it a little easier just to crank it on each cut. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one. This wheel has actually been ruined, but nonetheless I'm going to carry on, and it'll be good practice. So I'm going to carry on with cutting this one. Alright, so I said earlier that you couldn't hold on to one of these, and then I added the wing nut, and you can see here this is the reason why. There's a lot of tear out there because basically the wheel spun and it just continued to route it. However, machines have a lot of power, and well, you know what? Huge learning curve on these tires. That's going to be it for today in the shop. Between damaging some of my video equipment and destroying one of the wheels and a few other mishaps out here, nothing dangerous, but you know, enough to make me call it quits for the day. I'm going to be back tomorrow to continue this video, and hopefully we'll get all of these tires routed out and I'll show you the end result. We're back again today, and as you can see from yesterday's mishaps, this didn't go so well. Not a big deal. Back at it today. I've made adjustments to the jig for both the depth of cut and as well, like I pointed out yesterday, I exchanged the regular hex nut for a wing nut to make tightening a little easier and get rid of that screwdriver setup. And we're going to go ahead now and I'm going to cut one of these wheels, and I'll come back and show you what the results were on that. So that's one side of the tire routed, and with the adjustments that I made, it actually worked out pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out of the jig and I'm going to transfer my index marks to the other side, and then we're going to go ahead and route the back side of this, and hopefully this tire will be a success, and then I can just carry on with the entire process. So here's hoping. I've now lined up the indexing jig with the center in between each of these cuts, and I'm now just going to go around and mark each of these individual index lines again for the second routing of this particular tire. This is a very time-consuming process, routing these treads. So I'm hoping I got this one right, and then I only really wasted one tire, which shouldn't be too hard to duplicate to remake it. So I'm just going to mark all of these index marks, and then we're going to take it back over to the router in the jig, and we're going to reroute this side. With that, we have one successful wheel. I don't know if you can see it. These are the treads here, and they look good. On the very last cut, I had one tiny bit of tear out, which I'll show you here right at the tip of my finger there. Just a tiny little bit of chip out, and the rest looks good. It's going to need some sanding, and obviously I have to drill out, and I have to turn all the hubs on the lathe. But you can see right here, I'll just get out of the way, right here, you've got pretty much 20 minutes of routing per tire. That doesn't include the marking or the cutting or the rounding off, the sanding. It doesn't include anything. That's just the routing of the treads. So I've got a bit of work ahead of me, and I'll see you when that's done. And with that, after a couple hours it's sitting at the router table, we have all 7 wheels with the treads routed, with only one casualty, which was our initial wheel, which I've replaced. So this is a tough process. It's hard on the router. I had to keep stopping to let the router cool down because of the heat that was pumping out of the router cabinet. So now that we have all the treads done, now we're going to go ahead and drill out the center hubs here to accept the hubcaps on these wheels. The next step in these wheels is to drill out the center with an 1.5" Forstner to accept the hub for the center of these tires. And The problem is we've got a 1/4 inch hole drilled in the center from the wheel cutter or the circle cutter, and it's pretty hard to line up a Forstner bit when your pilot in the middle really has nothing to guide into. So I'm going to bring it over here to the lathe, and what I'm going to do is I've got this set up where I'm going to screw my tire onto the end of my lathe here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my 1.5" Forstner into the end of it, and all I'm really doing here is marking the hole. I'm not going to drill it all the way through. The reason being because that screw that I just screwed it onto, of course, protrudes further than what the depth of my hole is supposed to be. So really, the only thing I really want to do here is just mark these holes in the center and give a good foundation for the Forstner bit to finish the job off over at the drill press. And with that now, that one has got a good basis, a good divot in it that I could take this over to the drill press now and finish this off. So I'm going to drill the other 6 just like this, and then we're going to head over to the drill press. Well, the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to set the depth of our drill press. And these are not through holes. The tires are 5/8 of an inch thick, and we need a 1/2 inch deep hole. So that will leave 1/8 of an inch of material after the drilling is done. So I've got one of my setup blocks here. You see it's for 1/8 of an inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay this on the table, and I'm just going to lower my drill press until my Forstner bit is touching my setup block. And once it's touching my setup block, I will just come over here and tighten up my depth stop, which I featured on another show. And there we go. Now the drill press is set for a 1/2 inch deep hole. So now I'm going to get the tires over here, and we're going to start drilling them. Well, what I've got here is a hand screw clamp, and this is what I'm going to be holding this tire with. And let me just start off with saying that if you think you have the physical strength to hold this tire while that bit drills it, well, more power to you. And let me tell you something, if you hold this tire with your hand while you drill it with that drill bit, you're going to end up with 2 things. 1, you're going to wreck your wheel. And number 2, you're going to end up with sore hands, because when that bit grabs and wants this tire, it wants it more than your hand does. And those treads that you routed out are going to rip the living snot out of your fingers. So, get something to hold it with. Whether it be a quick grip clamp or what have you. Doesn't matter. Do not hold it with your hands. That's just a fool's game. So anyway, we've got our drill press set up here for our depth, and all we have to do now is just lower that bit down into that hole and just take it easy. There's no need to rush this. If you see that your wheel is starting to slip in the clamp, reset it, tighten it up just a little bit, just like that. See how that just grabbed? Hope my hand didn't block that, because that was awesome. That grabbed, and even with the clamp, there's no way I would have been able to hold that. Oops, sorry about jiggling the camera. But like I said, if some of you guys think you're strong enough, knock yourself out. If this grabs like that again, what I may end up doing is getting a larger clamp. So This is a little awkward because I'm trying to work around the camera here, and anyway, so you just want to take it slow and drill your 1.5-inch hole to your desired depth. And that desired depth would be that. And there we have it. There is our finished wheel, except for the sanding, which we're also going to take care of. So I'm going to finish drilling all of these, and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I've got all 7 wheels drilled out, and at this point in time they look a little like that right there. So the next step of what I have to do with these wheels is I have to do a 1/8 inch round over on the interior of each of these wheels. So once I get that done, then I'm gonna mount them onto the lathe, probably onto my pen mandrel. I found that that seems to work best, and I'm gonna give these all a sanding, and that will be it for these 7. So I'll see you back after all of that is done. There you have it. 3 days of work, and that's 3 like 6-7 hour days to get 7 of these wheels. Crazy amounts of time to make stuff like this. But anyway, I'll give you a little picture here. This is what one looks like, this one in particular. All 7 of these are done now. I ran into a bit of an issue with the routing of the 1/8 round over on the inside of the rim. The reason being my bearing doesn't fit inside this hub, so I'm going to have to think of something else to do it. Looks like I may be doing some handwork here, sanding the inside of those rims. Anyway guys, thanks for coming along today on this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's just a little insight to what it really takes to make some of these models. And like I said, 3 days, 7 wheels. It's been a long run. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you again next week with yet another woodworking video. Just to let you know, I did get that 1/8 of an inch round over done on the inside hub area of those tires. The reason the bit wouldn't fit properly is because the head of the retaining bolt for the bearing was a rather large head, and I ended up just putting in a smaller bolt, or a bolt with a smaller head, in order to hold in that bearing, and it worked just fine, and was the final result right here. So I'll move on to the rims, and obviously this video is done. But again guys, thanks for watching.